Hello and welcome to Gabbett Media. I'm Grant Abbott and today we're sculpting a winter wolf. This is part of a 3D printing series and also a sculpting series. So check out the playlist in the description for more information on that. Also check out the previous tutorial about creating base meshes so you can get up to the point that I'm at the moment. The background image is also in the description, along with lots of other details about the kit I'm using. Also, if you haven't already, check out my character course, where I go through the whole character creation process in detail with a game-ready character. And of course, there's my Learning to Draw Kickstarter, so you can create these sort of background images. And we learn to draw through creating game art. Okay, so we're ready to add some details. Let's zoom into my object slightly. Once you've got a base mesh like this, we now get to the fun bits. I've got my reference image also in the side view here, so that's with the image editor open instead of the outliner because I've only got one object in my scene. Okay, so this will need a bit of tidying up first. Once you've got your base mesh to this point, you might be ready to up the detail a touch. So remember, Control R is to remesh, as you saw there, and Shift R is to change the size of the faces when you remesh. So I'll just go to roughly 0.02. It again depends on the size of your model. So if I press Control R, that's what you're going for in terms of the detail. Your faces should look about this big. So we're kind of doing the second level of detail. None of this sort of fur stuff or details in maybe the paws and if there's any claws there. So just with the draw brush or the grab brush, I can move around and just smooth a few areas out. So holding down Shift to smooth. Make sure I'm keeping that sort of basic outline or silhouette. So we can come to side view every now and again, make sure we haven't deviated too far. G for the grab brush, F to resize, and I'll just make sure that I'm in the right position for the tail and that it's pretty flat along the floor here. Smooth this area out a touch. Let's go to front view as well and just go to wireframe and make sure I'm in line, and you can see I'm way out with this area of the silhouette. So again with the grab brush, pulling that in and smooth it out. Lost a little bit of bulk, so come around to the side here. And that's what will happen when you use the smooth brush. You'll lose a little bit of substance. Z to get my pie menu up for the view, back to solid mode. Let's see where we are. Just smooth some of these areas out and back to the draw brush I think now. So Control to dig in. And let's start thinking about where the outline of his paws will be. So to front view, wireframe mode, and let's start digging those in. So Control to dig in. And you should be able to just about see my mesh changing there. Okay, and then back to solid mode, Z to solid mode, and so we can roughly see the outline. And that's all I was doing there, is just so I could see the outline of my shape. Now I can start smoothing these areas out by digging in first and then using Shift to smooth out. Now this area is going to be a bit tricky, because one, we've got to be aware of the 3D printing, so we don't want to add too much detail, so we need supports in here, but we want to add enough detail so it looks like there's some legs coming down here. So let's draw some legs going up. Control R to do another remesh. And then let's look at these paws. A bit more thickness on there. And just check our silhouette once again. G for the grab brush, F to resize it, pull these paws in so they've got more shape. Okay, so that's a good starting point for those. We'll come back to those when we go to the next level of detail. Let's just think about the outline of this area. We want this to come in around the back here and not stick out too far. Let's just smooth out at the bottom here. Okay, so that's fine for now, and we'll come back to that in a second. And we want to dig in here. I want quite big paws, so they'll come out to there. Okay, now we're starting to look roughly around right. Bit more smoothness around here. Okay, let's just quickly look at side view again and see how we're doing. We've lost a bit of our shape. And wireframe, so we can see where this shape comes fully. Okay, let's get this more lined up with the background image again. Okay, so it needs to be around there. This whole shape needs to come back a touch. And you may want to spend a fair bit of time on this secondary level of detail. Don't rush it, because you'll find it very difficult in the next level and it'll take much longer. Okay, let's have a quick scan around in wireframe mode. Okay, and back to solid mode. Get the draw brush for this so I can pull it down. And just the last few tiny tidy ups around here and around the legs. Okay, so that's fine for that area. Let's go to the mouth now. Again, with the draw brush, let's just flesh some of these areas out that we need to and dig some in that we need to. Control R for quick remesh where you need to. For small areas like this, I use the inflate brush. So use the inflate brush, make it nice and big. It's very difficult to draw on it otherwise, sometimes it overlaps itself, so you need to flesh them out with the inflate brush first. And now we can go to the draw brush and start adapting this if we need to. And Control R to remesh. Might put my remesh up a little bit, so at the moment I'm at 0.02, so I say up but actually down, 0.016 should be good in the remesh. There we go, a bit more detail now. Now you'll probably want some reference images around here for a wolf's face because we can't really see it very well from the side here or the front there. So you might just want to take a quick look, but I'm not adding too much detail because it's sort of a stylized representation rather than the detailed wolf. But if you want more detail, then have a look at some reference. I had a few glitches with the remesh here, so I had to actually go to the menu instead, but it didn't make too much difference. And now start to work on the teeth. And just the slightest indication of teeth, nothing too special. Okay, so we've got the rough outline now. Let's start adding the detail. And I really like the crease brush for adding those areas of detail. So just the basic settings, and let's come in here and start thinking about where we want some crevices. Now we can see a slight issue here where we've got too much space, so let's undo that area and we'll actually add some space with our draw brush like this, smooth it out. Back to the crease brush now though, especially for the feet, or paws I should say. You might want to use also the draw sharp, where you can actually draw dents in like this, which is probably better in this situation, I think, yes. The crease brush though, probably for the actual paws themselves, where it sort of squeezes them together. I'm going to create more of a dent in here. Now here, because my remesh is quite fine, making any big adjustments can be quite difficult, so try and make any big adjustments earlier on in the sculpt. Okay, back to the crease brush I think again, and then slowly sort of smooth that out. Draw sharp for a bit more emphasis on the gap. Okay, probably the draw sharp in here as well, not too much, but just a line down here, a bit more detail in here, and just a tiny edge. Outline the nose a bit. I'm looking through my reference image now, so you might want to turn them off in the outliner. So back to the outliner and let's turn those off. And then back to my image editor and just use this now for my reference. We shouldn't be moving any big shapes around now, so we shouldn't need those background images. Quick remesh. Dig in for the nostrils, and the crease brush just coming out in there. Might give it a bit more detail. Coming up around the eyes. Just have a quick look at that. Okay, that's okay. Draw sharp. And the crease brush. I want his eyes to look closed. Okay, so how do we work on the fluffy bits? Well, I think we need a bit of the draw sharp, just simple shapes like this to start off with, just to outline where they're going. So it's a bit like I'm sketching now. Just smooth and round out his back a bit more. Okay, so now I've got those, I can start going to the draw tool, maybe make this a bit sharper. So where the fall off is, that's sort of looking at the brush from the side. So at the moment it's smooth, but if I want it a bit sharper, you can see literally says sharper there. Now if you want to adapt this, you can come down to custom and then you actually get the graph yourself, so I can start changing it around here if I need to. Let's just have a look and see what the sharper one does. So I'm bringing these areas out like so, and then I'll smooth out the middle bits. Okay, it's starting to work slowly. I'm digging in as well if I need to sort of literally dig in any areas. It looks very symmetrical from the front, so we may have to add a bit more finer detail in here so it doesn't look quite as bad. Control R to remesh. I think a bit more fur coming down his legs. And a bit more detail coming up there. Still again with just the draw tool, but the sharpness on, so this sharp profile here under the fall off. I might go back to the normal now, or the slightly wider one. Just dig this area in just a touch. Control R again to remesh. I might add some tiny sort of details coming up here. Oh, back to the sharp though. Just a few of those, I think, where it comes out a bit more. These are sticking out a bit too much. Okay, let's get the draw sharp now and come in a bit finer. So we might need to remesh a bit smaller. So I'm going to go down to 0.7. So you can see my detail level there. Let's just bring up the statistics so you can see them on the side. So under overlays, statistics, and you can then see the face count. It's not particularly high. You should be able to do this on a reasonably fast laptop anyway. And I can probably go a little bit lower with my remesh just so I can add a bit more detail. So we'll go to 0.005 and remesh. And we're up to almost 500,000 faces. So with my sharp tool now, define some of those lines a bit more. Might use the crease brush actually. Yeah, the crease brush gives a bit of a smoother look, the crease brush. Smoothing out this line down here as well. Now to sharpen up some of these curves, I can use the reverse crease brush as I call it, so holding down Control, and then you've got some sharpness to that fur now. Gives it a more stylized look certainly. Want a bit more point on them, then again use that reverse crease to give that sharpness to the edges. Smooth out if you have to. And just tidy up any areas around that have been squished and pulled around by that brush by holding down Shift to smooth out. Okay, the tail needs a bit of work. I'd kind of neglected that, but as you can see here, we got some fluff on the tail, so let's start thinking about that a bit more. So back to side view, and let's use our draw tool to start off with. Give that sort of shape and smooth out. I'm giving it a sort of random blobbiness on purpose. I like a bit of sharpness in here as well. Looks a bit more wintry now, doesn't he? I think the leg's looking a bit plain, so maybe a bit of fur on the legs as well. Back to the draw brush to try and bring some of these fluffy bits out. I think it just needs a bit of fluff on the top here. And then back to the draw sharp to try and crease that out a bit. Just look back and see what that looks like. That's not too bad at the moment. I'm going to rough him up a bit with some other brushes in a second. Tidy those up with the crease. Using the draw sharp again where you need to. Going to use the draw sharp on these, give them a really deep indent now. Might need another remesh, so Control R. Again, combination with the draw sharp and that crease brush. Okay, now the fine details. I'll do one more remesh, go a little bit finer. Tricky to say whether you need to go this far with the remesh, but my computer can handle it, so I'm just using it because it's there, but you may not need to. Again, I'll use the draw sharp. I'll just add that sort of scratchy look to them. Now let's just have a quick look at the brush. I'm on sharp at the moment. So again, if I go to custom here, you can see that's that profile. So that's the side of the brush. And that should be absolutely fine. Just make my brush a bit smaller. It has got a sort of it's got a little bit too much of a gradual fall off. So I might change that a bit so it's to there. But then you sort of see the lumpiness. It does depend on your resolution a little bit here. Let's just see what they look like. They might be a bit too big. So I'll undo those. Brush a little bit smaller again. And remember, you can go the other way as well with the reverse crease, and that should really sort of roughen these areas up a bit. So I'm randomly going between sticking out with Control in this case because of the draw sharp, and digging in, which is just the normal brush. Sharpen these ears up a bit. On the last remesh I must have lost some of my detail around here. I'm going to use the grab brush quickly. Feel like I've gone in too far here, so I'm leveling it up with this bit, and I think that's a bit better now. Okay, so we want more focus on the face really. I've spent a lot of time on the body and it looks quite nice and detailed, but it loses focus from the face, and that's actually where we need it. So I think I'm going to add a bit more detail in here. That's a bit better. I'm going to go finer with my remesh again. The main reason I'm doing that is so I don't lose any detail in some of these areas like the nose and so forth. Let's do a remesh again. So we haven't lost too much there, and now I can smarten some of this up a little bit. Probably with the crease tool just to bring them in together, smooth tool. It's tricky from this angle with the head. It looks a little bit odd, so I'm going to just change a few things around with the grab brush. Again, you shouldn't really with this level of detail. The more of the mesh you change with this sort of level of detail, the harder the computer finds it. I think that's okay though. Okay, yeah, so we got a bit more detail there now, so that should look nice. A bit more fluff on his leg. Now just adding a bit of definition around the legs and the paws. Just digging in a touch with the draw sharp brush. And just offering a bit of detail, sort of a fur look, and making sure that it matches up with the rest of the shape. Like I've said before, the draw sharp brush is really nice if you've got that sort of sketchy approach. It just sort of digs in as if you are just sort of sketching really. Just having a quick look at the bottom jaw. It looks a bit bigger than the top jaw, so let's bring that in. And I'm thinking a bit more fur around here. And for this very last bit I might go off symmetry, so let's turn the symmetry off. Just try and manoeuvre that symmetry a little bit so it doesn't look quite so uniform. I don't think it matters too much that it does. There we go, fairly proud winter wolf. Looking particularly fluffy, probably a bit too fluffy maybe. In the next episode I'll talk about the 3D printing process and how I'm taking this from Blender into the slicing program. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.